All right. Thank you, Stefan, for the introduction. Like Stefan has said, I'm part of the Frauenhofer Research Institution for Battery Cell Production, located in Münster. Here you can see here an air image of our production facility that will be built in Münster-Amelsburen. And I'm going to give you a quick overview of what we do so you have an understanding where our research topic is and why I'm going to be speaking about the battery product passport. So we are located in Münster, North Rhine-Westphalia, in the western part of Germany. And we are an open battery cell factory for research and development purposes. We were initially funded with 820 million from the country and also from the state North Rhine-Westphalia to build up a battery infrastructure in Germany, and yeah, particularly focusing on North Rhine-Westphalia, Münster. We now have more than 200 battery experts, including partners, working at our facility. And once the big gigafactory will be opened, we will be able to produce at theoretically 7 gigawatt hour production at the electrode side. So where we started in 2021, we opened a workspace at 430 square meters and 50 megawatt hour of production capacity. There we are able to conduct continuous mixing and coating of the negative anode and also subsequent drying. We opened in 2024 our smaller factory, so the prefab. There we have a 3,000 square meter floor space and a production capacity of 200 megawatt hours. At the prefab, we can produce digitalized pouch and prismatic cells and yeah, really portray the complete production from starting materials to the final cell. And like you've seen before, the Gigafactory will be opened at 2027, 2028 with a much larger floor space of 20,000 square meters and a theoretical production capacity of 7 gigawatt hour per year. And at the big factory, we will be able to portray the full battery production under gigawatt conditions with all production steps and common cell formats. We conduct public research as well as industrial research. So, of course, we do, like all Fraunhofer institutes, our own research activities, as well as funded research projects, and also work with industrial partners in bilateral industry projects, as well as consortial industry projects. So if there's any specific issues from industry, customers come to us and work with us on specific production or, yeah, in our case, sustainability topics. And also the battery passport and generally digitalization is part of our scope. So that's why I'm going to speak about the EU battery regulation today. We've heard before a lot about digital product passports in general. So because we work in battery production, one of our main focuses, of course, is the digital product passport for batteries, which is part of the EU battery regulation. So maybe a quick overview of the regulation. It replaces the old battery directive that was entered into force last year in August. And why the directive was changed, kind of the background is that an evaluation of the old battery directive in 2019 showed that, a better harmonization in Europe between the member states would be achieved through a regulation instead of a directive. Through the study, it became clear that in the different member states, there were various ways of collecting waste and also recycling activities. And in order to streamline that and really form a European solution, the Commission decided to implement a battery regulation instead of a directive, because the regulation applies directly in every member state and does not have to be transported first in national legislation. The scope of the application is every member state starting in 2024, so this year in February, will fall under the battery regulation, and it's part of the cornerstone of the European Green Deal. And the general goal is to improve resource utilization, circularity along the battery value chain, and prolong the life cycles of batteries in the entire European regulation. So to get a quick overview of what falls under the battery regulation, before 3 different battery types were part of the directive. So portable batteries, starter batteries, and industrial batteries. And with the novelty of the battery regulation, 2 different types of batteries were also applied. So now EV batteries and LMT batteries are part of the regulation. So yeah, 5 different battery types in all EU member states will have to be reported to. And a quick overview what the regulation requires from a legal perspective. Yeah, we've seen before that the idea is to cover and really track and trace the entire life cycle of the battery value chain. So starting from mineral sourcing and production through the use phase of battery and ending with end of life and recycling. And this is just a quick snippet. So of course, there's more that will be covered as part of the regulation, but some of the most important requirements are minimum levels of recovered lead, cobalt, lithium, and nickel. These values are increasing over time. So it will end in 2020 or 2035 with, for example, 12% of nickel. Then there will be mandatory due diligence reports, including traceability or chain of custody systems, also minimum performance and durability requirements, as well as collection target and recycling efficiencies. Also, those will increase over time, and a carbon footprint report will have to be issued and made publicly available for each model and per manufacturing plant. And yeah, like we've heard before, there will be a mandatory battery passport, so a digital product passport for battery that portrays every information, the key statistic, and yeah, dynamic data for each battery of the 5 battery types that we've seen before. So a quick overview of what the battery passport is. The timeline here is that it enters into force and becomes mandatory 42 months after the entry of the battery regulation. So that will be in February 2027. It seems like there's a lot of time to prepare for the entry of the battery passport, but we will see shortly that there's a vast amount of data that will be collected along the value chain of batteries. So it's very advisable to already start now to get ready and prepare the companies for the implementation of the battery passport. The scope of the passport will be 3 different battery types. So LMTs will have to be reported, then industrial batteries with a capacity over 2 kilowatt hours, and electric vehicle batteries. And responsible for issuing the battery passport will be the economic operator or an authorized representative who is placing the battery on the market. So in most cases, that's a manufacturer or an importer. There's different requirements as to who identifies as an economic operator. And of course, there will be valuations. There will be sanctions in case of violations that can result in fines or skimming of profits or sales bans. And the access groups are 4 different types. So the general public will, of course, be able to look into the information that is being published to, yeah, for example, make better purchasing decisions. Then notified bodies, market surveillance authorities, and the Commission, and any natural or legal person with a legitimate interest in accessing the information. So depending on the data that is being issued, some of the information may be restricted or only available to certain access groups. So not everything is available for everybody. Then, like I said before, it's advisable to get ready for the battery passport as quickly as possible, even though it will be mandatory only in 2027, because there's a lot of information that needs to be collected along the battery value chain. So this is also a quick snippet, just a brief overview, but there is over 90 data attributes that will become mandatory. Those can be roughly clustered into 7 groups. So we have general information on the battery system, for example, manufacturing information like the battery ID, the production place, and the production date, then which category the battery falls under, then the weight of the battery and the status. Also, the status, of course, is going to change over the life of the battery. Then we have various labels and certifications. For example, a declaration of conformity needs to be issued. Like I said before, the carbon footprint needs to be conducted and also made publicly available along with the study, how it was reported and calculated. Then various supply chain documents and informations will need to be made publicly available. Data on materials and composition, for example, hazardous substances, as well as the battery chemistry. And circularity is also a big factor. So recycled content, like we've learned before, of the valuable battery materials increasing over time, and also manuals for removal of the battery will need to be made available in order to help with the repairability in the future. And lastly, the performance and durability of the battery. So information that's mainly being taken from the battery management system, for example, capacity and energy or power, as well as the lifetime in years and cycles. Also, negative events will be displayed in the battery passport. For example, when there was an overcharge, everything will be able, to be seen in the battery passport. And there's various challenges, of course, that come along with implementing the battery passport as a digital product passport, especially because it's a first product passport, digital product passport that is being implemented. So it's kind of the blueprint for all the different battery passports or digital product passports that will be implemented in the future. So of course, we've seen before that there's the vast amount of information that needs to be displaced. So especially smaller and medium enterprises will face the burden of limited financial and human resources to meet the requirements of the battery passport. Also generally understanding what is required, so what kind of information needs to be collected, where is it to be collected along the value chain, and are the partners, are the suppliers able and willing to portray the information? So really, complying in general with the legal requirements and also having limited financial and human resources will pose a big challenge, especially to smaller companies. And then at the same time, violations that can occur due to not understanding or not having the resources to meet the requirements that can result in different fines, skimming of profit. So that's something that really needs to be looked out for and carefully prepared until 2027 to really make sure the companies understand what is required as part of the battery regulation and battery passport, and how can you do everything to get ready in time to really be able to issue the passport in 2027 with the different requirements. Then also implementing the battery passport will be a challenge. Of course, not only collecting the data is something that needs to be looked out for, but also how the data is being collected along the supply chain, what kind of IT infrastructure and what kind of system to issue the battery passport needs to be implemented at company level. That's still to be determined. So that's something companies definitely need to be on the lookout for to make sure they they prepare accordingly in terms to acquire, for example, the correct system and get ready with the infrastructure that will be needed as a baseline to be able to fulfill the requirements. And of course, challenges along the supply chain, but also at production level. So yeah, like I've said before, traceability and also data acquisition, making sure that companies, partners, suppliers understand the legal requirements, and also preparing them in advance to be able to collect the data on time and collect the right data, and also securing recycled materials. We've learned that different recycling contents will be needed. So there will be a shortage, most likely, of recycled materials due to the vast increase of the mandatory recycled content. So understanding what materials will be needed and also securing the materials on time. At the same time, integrating recycled content into the cells without impacting cell performance could pose a challenge on especially cell manufacturers in the future. So that's a very hot topic that's being also studied at our institution, really understanding if recycled material is implemented at the required rates, how is it impacting potentially the cell performance. So yeah, those are things that definitely need to be considered. And also identifying and decreasing the product carbon footprint that kind of goes along with the traceability issue. So if you don't have the information to conduct an LCA, to conduct a carbon footprint because data isn't made publicly available from partners, it could pose a challenge on companies or manufacturers that need to portray the carbon footprint. So at the same time here, making sure to understand the supply chain, making sure to prepare all the partners to display the data, and generally understanding the requirements on time and getting ready. At the FFB, how we work with the topic of battery passport, we try to really combine the legal requirements with the digital side. So we try to implement the battery passport through automated data provision and the generation of passport complaint data output. And in our research, we focus on the interplay of digitalization and sustainability as an enabler for transparency and quality in battery production. For example, we do cost-benefit assessments of the implementation of the battery passport. And like I've said before, we, for example, also look into the use of recycled content in cell production, how it's affecting cell performance, and also the traceability of recycling processes for verification of recycled material, and simultaneously traceability of upstream value-adding processes and battery past linkages. And lastly, we also look into the threshold values of benchmarking of cells according to the before mentioned battery regulation. So if there are any questions in regards to the battery passport or also things that our institute works on in regards to the battery regulation and battery passport, you can, of course, contact me, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.